And so let me bring in my favorite Pittsburgh Steeler, and that is Ryan Clark. RC, who is the Steelers' starting quarterback going to be week 1 of next year?
I have absolutely no idea, but I know he's not on the roster right now. That's what I know. I know a team that refuses to rebuild, a team that continues to reload and try to compete for AFC North championships, knows it can't start this year with Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins as its starting quarterback. And obviously, Kevin Colbert is retiring after the draft, but he's going to be tasked with setting this team up better for the future than he has before this season. And I think when you look at some of the veterans that could be on the market or some of the things that you could do to maneuver your team and put your team in a position to get a quarterback who is experienced at starting and that has won in this league, the Pittsburgh Steelers have to do that. We've seen Mason Rudolph. We've seen Dwayne Haskins. We also know what this team now is up front offensively and also at the skill player position. And so if you are Kevin Colbert, if you are Mike Tomlin, you are looking outside of your building to find your next quarterback.
Okay, so I agree with that completely. And keeping with the theme of overreactions, if we will, if I were to say the Steelers are a place, Pittsburgh is a team, when you consider the weapons, when you consider the stability top to bottom, when you consider the defense, when you consider the running back, if I were to say this is a place that I'm a veteran quarterback, I'm dying to go to, that might be as attractive as any possible destination, Ninko, would that be an overreaction?
Dying to go to, I think that would be an overreaction. I mean, a great organization to go to that has, some promising upside with a very steady head coach that is going to be there, has been there a long time, and Mike Tomlin, of course. It's a nice place to go. I don't think it's the number one place that you would want to go, but when you look at the defense and the stability at head coach, of course, that's a place that's definitely attractive to a quarterback.
Sacho, how about you? Can I get you to buy in on that would be the destination if I were a quarterback with options?
Not buying in, Greeny. Not buying in whatsoever for a couple reasons. One, statistically, and then secondly, culturally. Statistically, the offensive line, according to Pro Football Focus, was ranked 26 out of 32 teams. That's the bottom third of the NFL. So there are still issues offensively. I understand our head coach is one of the greatest. I understand we have weapons at running back and receiver and defense. But statistically, I have issues offensive line-wise. And then culturally, if anybody knows Pittsburgh, and RC, you know it well, Pittsburgh has a certain culture about it. I remember when I played in Arizona, there were so many guys from Pittsburgh who came there. They said, man, let's try and make this the Pittsburgh of the West. There was this culture that is in Pittsburgh, and I think it's kind of difficult to just come in as I understand you're a franchise quarterback or culture setter, to fit into that culture, right? The house that Big Ben has lived in for so long. And so I think that's something that we need to think about when you start throwing out names of quarterbacks that could go to Pittsburgh. It's not just about a fit from a personnel perspective. You got to think about, man, how do I fit within this culture, within this city, within this team? I think those things matter specifically when you're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's an interesting thought, and let me give you one example, RC. And Cindy, let's go ahead and roll this because it was one of my favorite moments of the NFL season. And we will bring up Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. Who can forget this? Little cat and mouse on the field there and there. Look at that. I mean, that's these two have a crush on each other. It's just that simple. Rodgers is winking over at Tomlin, and Tomlin is laughing at him. So, RC, what do you think about that? How about if I were to say Aaron Rodgers would be just as well off in Pittsburgh as he would be in Denver? What do you think?
Listen, I do a radio hit every Wednesday in Pittsburgh for the entire season, and I've answered this question before. We've talked about it before on those shows, and that's something that everybody in Pittsburgh has been clamoring about, and especially after that moment. But I think that moment was just a sign of respect, right? A Hall of Fame coach and a Hall of Fame quarterback playing a little cat and mouse game of timeout. But when you think about Pittsburgh and what that organization means, who understands what it's like to play for one of the more historically revered organizations more than Aaron Rodgers? He's been a Green Bay Packer his entire career. He knows what it means when certain logos carry a different level of weight, when you walk past Lombardi trophies your entire career. And so that is something that I would be extremely interested in. I know the Pittsburgh Steelers are interested in. I just don't know if they have what it takes to get it done.
All right, we'll find out. Bookmark that one. I don't think it should be ignored. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.